Hey everyone, welcome to ShePropTalk, the podcast featuring female, non-binary, and trans cosplayers. I am your host and fellow cosplayer, Beverly from Downen Creative Studios. Today's guest is Jerikandra Cosplay, and we are talking all about latex costuming. It's an awesome episode, and you're gonna really enjoy this. And I'm also including a new segment in these podcasts called Artist Featurette. And today's featurette is Pros and Cons Cosplay. So stick around and I hope you enjoy the show. Welcome back to ShePropTalk. I am Beverly, and today I am chatting with Jerika from Jerikandra Cosplay. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
You? Oh my gosh. Well, I am super excited to have you here because I've been meaning to get you on this podcast for a really long time. Not only because you are the latex queen, and I want to talk to you about that, but we've known each other for a long time, and we're like convention friends. We see each other at almost every single convention that I think I've ever gone to.
Just about.
Yes. And for a while there, it seemed like every time Brett and I, my husband and I, would walk into a convention, we would see you and your friend Abby standing there, like looking gorgeous and amazing and perfect. So yeah, finally we get to have some out of convention time to talk about work and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, some of the I think it's gotten better over the years, but there was some cons there where we wouldn't see each other all con, and then like at the last second or something we'd run into each other.
Right. I know, that is so funny. It's like nobody else I can say that about, but yeah, that definitely has happened many times. Or we see each other at like the after hours parties. Yeah. Well, hopefully we can run into each other again at a convention sometime. You know, maybe the next year.
I really hope so. Yes,
yeah.
Please.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I really miss it a lot. I was really bummed that Emerald City didn't happen, but I understand. And then it was rescheduled. We'll see what happens. Have they canceled it yet? Do you know?
I don't. I'm wondering if they want to take it virtual or something, because I'm
Right.
sure they don't want to lose all the money. So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that would be. Well, anyway, enough about conventions. Let's talk about you, because you have been cosplaying for a while, and your specialty is something that I don't know that a lot of cosplayers really delve as deeply into as you do. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your cosplay? And tell us all about everything that you do.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm in the Seattle area, and I make latex costumes. So that's primarily what I make. I've done my share of spandex. I've done my share of non-stretch, which I really don't like. After doing so much stretch fabric, it's like actually it feels harder to do non-stretch. Um, so that's my primary thing. Although lately I've gotten into ballet tutus. That's my new. I had a new project to make a classical ballet 10-layer tutu. And now after making that, I've like ordered tons of fabric to make a couple more. So.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, I saw the photos from it, and they're just beautiful. I have a tiny, when I was a little kid, I was in a ballet class, and it was my dream to wear a tutu, and I think I got to wear one once, and that was forever etched in my mind. So I can't imagine making one and being able to make your own costumes like that, because you are a ballerina as well.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, the technical term ballerina is like principal dancer at a company.
Oh, okay.
But I
Okay.
still like to, I mean, as a generic term, I still like to say that. Yes, I take ballet classes.
You take ballet classes. Well, it's awesome. So are you incorporating latex into your ballet costumes with your tutu? Is this like launching you into a new costuming design direction?
I mean, so it's interesting. Like when I first got into latex, I would sew things first as like a starter. And so I feel like that's what I'm doing here. When I first made a latex bra for my Ariel, I made a regular bra just to kind of, because I never made a bra. And so I was like, you need to kind of feel like you know how to do it.
Yeah.
A couple of years back, I wanted to make a latex black swan. And I kind of have some ideas of how to do it, but I wanted to make some tutus first to like get an idea of how it's done.
Yeah.
And then I have to like figure out how to do that in latex, which is going to be a little more complicated. But
that is amazing. I cannot wait for that. Oh my God, that's going to be
someday. There's a lady who makes latex, and she has feathers, and they are latex, little triangles of latex that are like glued into little glued kind of together in like a circle, and so it looks like a little triangle feather thing, and just millions of these things on her outfits, and I'm just like, I can do that. So
oh my gosh, that is crazy. Well, I will look out for that. I hope that you do that, because holy cow, that will be amazing. So yeah, you are the latex queen. I don't know of anyone else that in the cosplay world that is so proficient at latex, and you seem to knock out these costumes like one after another, which is, you make it look really easy. And I think a lot of people might be a little intimidated by latex, maybe because, for a multitude of reasons. But what initially drove you to looking at latex as a costume material?
Yeah, sure. First off, like, definitely not like primary like latex cosplayer in the world or anything, but definitely in our area, probably one of the most well known. But I feel like an amateur, honestly. I've seen so many awesome latex in general, let alone latex costumes out there in the country, in the world. But yeah.
Well, you're my go-to, okay? You're my expert. I'm allowed to look up to you as the queen of latex.
I'm fine. I'm fine with this.
Good.
But yeah, how I got into it. So originally I was, I got into cosplay through modeling. I met ABC Cosplay, and she after a year of buying and having her make me costumes, I was like, I want to make it myself. And so she taught me to sew. And so I started making my own costumes, and kind of built on top of her shoulders there, where I didn't have to make a lot of mistakes she made, learning to sew and make costumes. But yeah, at some point I met a Y in the road where it's like she was doing this, and I'm like, I like the look of these latex costumes that are out there. I've seen several Supergirls out there. Actually, early on in my cosplaying, I commissioned someone else to make me a latex Supergirl. And then also a latex, I made a Black Widow suit as well as all the props. And then I was like, I could wear this in latex. It looks so much better.
Yeah.
And shinier and sexier, And so I had someone I commissioned someone else to make me a Black Widow latex catsuit as well. So that was all before I started getting into it. And then at some point, one of my friends was like, why don't you like make this stuff? You seem into it. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, that's a good thought, but I don't know anything about it. And so I had to start kind of figuring it out, getting my feelers out and like figuring it out. The latex community itself is kind of secretive.
Yeah.
And that's changed over the years, but in a lot of ways, there's still a lot of secrets on how to make latex. So.
Well, that's really interesting. Yeah, I think a lot of different industries are relaxing their secretive nature when it comes to at least learning the basics and being able to have the tools and find the tools that you need to successfully, use those materials. I wouldn't even know where to look for starting out with latex. What kinds of resources would you recommend someone that is just starting?
Yeah, sure. I don't know if it's still there, but there was a site called Making Latex Clothing, and that was kind of a starter for me. And they had some tutorials on there, just some very basic tutorials, like how to make a skirt or how to make this, and even how to make ruffles and things like that, because that's a lot different in latex than it is in fabric. But yeah, so that's in general just Googling. There's a lot of stuff out there now. And then there's.
You have a tutorial. Sorry, I'm going to encourage people to go to all your social medias, because you just did a live stream of you
Yeah.
making a dress. So I usually save all of this like, hey, go check out the website towards the end, but I really want people to go right now and check this out because you basically do like this is how you do it, live stream on. There's a Facebook link, and is it on
Yes.
YouTube as well? Where can people find this?
That one's not. That one's only on Facebook. I don't
Okay.
think Facebook gave me the video for that, so I could upload it to YouTube.
Oh, okay, all right. Yeah, that's kind of a bummer. Um, well, that was really interesting, and so I am wondering if maybe we could start with some basic question. I can ask you some basic questions about latex because I don't know anything about latex other than if you're allergic to latex, don't use latex. I mean, we're talking about the same kind of latex, right? That sounds like a silly question, but it's the same kind of a latex, right? Like if you have a
Yes.
latex sensitivity, stay away from this stuff. Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. Okay. Um, so where do you even start with let's say you want to make a costume that you have made, like a bodysuit or something. What would be a simple place to start for starting with making a latex costume?
Sure. I would say a skirt
Okay.
is pretty easy because you can make a very basic skirt with two seams, and it's
Okay.
just like, a front and back.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
but where do you start? It really goes to patterning, and
Mm-hmm.
there are actually places that provide patterns, give them measurements. MJ Trends, they sell latex sheeting as well
Okay.
as a latex beginner starter kit, which with everything you
Oh.
need.
Oh, that's
Um,
awesome. That's amazing.
yeah,
Okay.
so that's something kind of cool. But once you know the starter kit, you can actually buy everything on Amazon instead if you wanted
Yeah.
to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so patterning has been the hard part
Yeah.
because once you make a latex piece, it becomes much harder to modify,
Mm-hmm.
um, because it's just the way it goes together is not like spandex, and you can't just seam rip it.
Okay. Because you're kind of gluing it together. You're adhering the two pieces
Yes,
together.
exactly.
So is that the biggest difference between using like a fabric or a stretch fabric, kind of a fiber versus latex? Sounds like really considering construction and being aware of that. So do you do a mock-up beforehand just to make sure that everything is fitting correctly? Because you're still dealing with some stretch with latex, obviously.
Yes, yeah,
Um,
definitely.
yeah.
Um,
What would you say would be the biggest differences and the things to think about
yeah,
you're first going into latex, coming from a fiber background?
sure. I think first off, it's helpful if you're already good at patterning. You're
Hmm.
already ahead of the crew. In fact,
Hmm.
my most difficult thing is that I don't have a background in making things. I
Hmm.
just learned in 2013 how to sew. And so patterning and making custom patterns is like really hard. And so I've changed mine. Every time I made a new suit, I see what's wrong with it, and then I try to change the pattern, and then make my next suit. I'll make
Yeah.
something better.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so in general, like pre-patterning, sometimes I'll make a mock-up in like a heavier spandex. Like I've used Spandura in the past,
Okay.
which is like
Spandura.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And then when you're patterning, you also have to make sure it's a smaller seam allowance, and the layers don't. With sewing, you have the right side to right side that go
Mm-hmm.
together,
Mm-hmm.
but with latex, it's right side to wrong side because they kind of overlap instead,
Oh,
and so
okay.
there's much less of a seam allowance there.
Okay.
Um, and then cutting, you're using a rotary cutter, and you
Mm-hmm.
really don't want. You can't put pins in it because it'll
Yeah.
it'll weaken the latex, put holes in it, and
Yeah.
so I use like weights on the pattern. So I'll
Okay.
put like paper weights or like actual weights, and then rotary cut around it.
Okay.
Um, and then with gluing, you also have to think about the it's not paint thinner, it's actually like gluing thinner, that you have to use on the seams before putting the glue on. It's basically cleaning the seams so there's no residue.
Okay.
And then when you put the glue on there, you have to wait about 5 to 10 minutes.
Okay.
Um, and then once that, it basically curls up right away, and you have to kind of wait for it to uncurl and get
Oh.
tacky. And
Oh,
then you put
interesting.
the two seams together, and then you seam roll. And
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
that's kind of the basic process.
So let's go back to breaking down, unboxing kind of these terms that you're using, because some of these are very new for me. Okay, so we've talked about patterning and being very careful about making sure that you use small seam allowances for the overlap. So you don't sew through latex because you're effectively puncturing forever this fabric. Or
Correct.
I mean, do you call it fabric? Is it fabric?
I don't, but
it's just
I mean,
it's latex. It's a different
yeah.
thing altogether. Okay. So you do that, and then you have to remove the surface of the latex with the thinner, or the glue that has the thinner in it. Am I getting
So
this right?
basically,
Yeah.
when you're shipped latex sheeting, it's often powdered,
Okay.
and that's to keep it from sticking to itself. The
Okay.
ones that I've received that are not powdered are often very sticky, and you have to kind of powder it to get it kind of not be hard to work with.
Okay.
And so what you're doing there is making sure there's no powder residue, no dust,
Okay.
anything there, so that the glue can make kind of a tight, complete seam. Because it's almost like it's taking the two pieces of latex and just becoming one almost.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. And so when you apply the adhesive, is it like a contact cement and you do it on both sides, or you just do it on one?
Yeah, it's both sides. It's a rubber cement, believe it or not.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
every time I say that, people are like, wait, what? Like the stuff that we sniff or whatever? No.
Well, I guess that would make sense because it's rubber and it is cement. And so,
Yeah.
oh my gosh.
Not that I've like bought just like drugstore rubber cement or anything.
Right.
Like there's actual rubber cement for this purpose, but I'm pretty sure it's pretty close to the same thing.
Okay. All right. So one wouldn't want to necessarily use like barge contact cement to do this. You want to have something specific, like a certain kind.
I mean, again, I'm still an amateur. You know, I've been doing this several years, and I feel like an amateur still. Someone asked me like, "Well, why don't you use barges, or why don't you use, or have you tried this?" And I'm just like, I haven't. That's not what the industry says to use, so I don't. But without having experience and tried it myself, I don't know. Maybe it will work. Maybe it won't work.
Yeah.
But the other thing about latex sheeting is it's fairly expensive.
Sure.
And so you don't want to, I mean, you could do a test. I have millions of sheets of it in there. I could just do a test, but.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you have a system that works well, then why try to stray beyond that
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. So is this a toxic process at all? Is it something you need to be careful of? You're like, yes, you're nodding your head, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So yeah, there is mostly the thinner, but also the glue is, you don't want to be inhaling those fumes.
Yeah.
So you usually want, a mask, which hopefully everybody has plenty of those nowadays, but you actually want a good mask that actually filters, not the ones we're making out there to wear in public to look all fancy.
Right.
And
well,
then,
a respirator.
Respirator would be good.
Yeah.
I say that because I don't want someone to sue me. I don't use a mask. I actually,
Jerika.
I have a mask, and sometimes I'll use it if I'm in there a lot. But what I end up doing is I have a second bedroom, and the workbench against the window, and a fan that blows the fumes out the window.
Okay.
There are also like air purifiers or something. If you get a good grade one, that will help general air of the room.
Yeah.
But I tend to, since you're waiting 5 to 10 minutes every time you're waiting for the glue, I'll go in there. It's in a bedroom in the back, right? So I'll go in there, I'll glue. I actually have the heater like blasting and the window open, so I can do this in the winter if I want to.
Oh wow, that sounds lovely.
And then I'll just come out and watch TV for 10 minutes or whatever.
Yeah.
Browse the internet.
Yeah.
And then pause it and then go back in. It actually drives my boyfriend nuts sometimes because I'm always pausing the show if he's watching it with me.
Right. Well, that's important stuff. Okay, so you want ventilation and you want to wear a mask with this, which makes sense because it's a solvent, anything. Yeah. So the official word is wear a respirator and have ventilation, and please do all of that. All right. So after you do that, you have to let it dry and get tacky. Is it a tacky? You have to let it
Yeah,
get
it's more
tacky
of
kind
a
of thing. Yeah.
instead of like a liquid. And when I painted on with a paintbrush
Okay.
on the seam,
Okay.
like a small paintbrush, and you don't want too much of the glue because it'll, you want just enough that it's going to make a nice seam. And if it's too
Mm-hmm.
gloopy, it's not going to get tight enough and make a
Mm-hmm.
tight seam.
Mm-hmm.
And also, the more you put on there, the more it curls up on itself and messes with things.
Oh wow. Okay. Wow. I can see how you'd have to really take your time and make sure that you are being conscious of every step because you only really get one chance. Because if you've got everything cut to there's no seam allowance that you can take in again or like rip the seam like you were saying to like really be careful. So is this the part that is the most important part of the whole step, like all of the steps of the process, or are they all equally important?
That's a good question. I think they're all pretty equally. Like even when you're cutting it out, you wanna take the pattern off and look at it and make sure there's no little notches, because any
Okay.
little notch on the edge is gonna be a weak point that could rip.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, the gluing you want just enough that's making that's probably, I guess maybe that's the most important, right? Is having that tight seam. But again, if you have those notches, it doesn't matter about your seams. You could just have a weak point in the
Right.
latex that rips anyway.
Yeah. Ooh, boy. Then that would be a bad thing.
Yeah.
So once you have these two points together, when you're assembling the seam, I was watching your live, and so you just were like, okay, it's 30 more seconds. Okay, we're ready to do this now, and then you just started just putting it together like anybody would for like a contact cement kind of a thing where you're putting two edges together with foam, but you're being very careful around the corners and around the parts that aren't super flat and straight.
Yes.
How do you accommodate for stretch and to make sure that you don't wind up, I mean, I know you've got a lot of experience with doing this now, but do you have any tips for what you do to make sure that you're not overstretching one side and then, you know, and then you're really
It
sad?
takes, yeah, it takes practice. It's really hard, like
Mm-hmm.
sleeves and legs, because you're doing the seam down the middle, and when you get to the end, and one side's slightly longer than the other, and if it's slightly longer, that's great. When it's
Yeah.
way too long, then it's really bad. Um,
Oh no.
but yeah, it's practice. I've also found like either the one on top versus the one on bottom. One of them we tend to stretch more, and so sometimes I'll go one way halfway down, and then I'll switch to the other way so that the other one's on top.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
yeah, there's a couple
Oh,
different
gotcha.
things that you
Okay.
can try in that way.
Okay. All right. Wow, I would be really nervous. Do you ever like get to like when you're working on something like your most recent costume, where you're like, okay, deep breath. Let's make sure that I do this right. Because I would imagine that some of these seams are pretty long. Like if you have a big long bodysuit, you're not dealing with a two piece where you've got, the longest seam is 30 inches or whatever. Um, I can imagine that assembling these must be really hard as well. If you are making a bodysuit, say, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just imagining like all of the problems that I've had with like having to turn things inside out and like stretching and like really wrestling with a bodysuit with fiber or fabrics, not really being able to do that much with latex would be a challenge. How have
Yeah.
you? Yeah, what are your experiences with that?
Well, it's interesting too. Putting a bodysuit together. Let's talk about that because it's
Okay.
different. It's different for than sewing. Like I'm used to like, all right, you make the torso and then you make the sleeves and then you put them on. You don't want to do it that way in latex. It's
Okay.
gonna be way harder on you.
Okay.
Um, the actual you want to be in a position where most of it's flat when you're gluing. As soon as you start actually creating something that goes around something, it becomes much harder to work with.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't until I have a latex designer friend. She used to make latex for her store. Now she's primarily like spandex stuff. But she taught me a couple things that I didn't necessarily learn online. And one of the things she taught me was like, you need to learn how to put a bodysuit together to make it easier on yourself. And that's like keeping it as flat as possible until the very last second.
Okay.
And so it's like, you know, you don't put don't make it all into a full encompassing suit until you have to. Okay. And so that means like you put the front part all together, you put the sleeves on just the front.
Okay.
And you leave it kind of hanging for the back.
Oh, wow.
And then, it just becomes this kind of, as we encompass the thing, it comes together. Okay. So, that was kind of interesting to learn.
Wow. That's like, I'd have to unlearn a bunch of things that I've been trying to learn about sewing. Gosh, that's so interesting. So when you're making a bodysuit, what is the hardest part for you? Is it that process, or is it like getting the sleeves, that part of the sleeve there, or is that not even an issue? Or is it honestly, getting a crotch right for me and like a regular fiber bodysuit is like super hard for me sometimes. And I rely on that stretch and, hiding my crimes with sewing. What's the hardest part for you? What have you found?
So similarly, when it's not just patterning in general,
right.
I've been working on the same bodysuit pattern for me over the years, and people always ask me like, "Well, can you make costumes for other people?" I'm like, "Look how long I've been working on just this one pattern. I can't make something right." But crotch seams are one of the worst, especially so for latex, I'm usually putting a crotch zipper in.
Oh, okay.
That's my Black Widow costume that I commissioned. I was like, I don't want a crotch zipper. That seems too sexual or something. Just make it Black Widow down the front, show a little cleavage. That's fine. Yeah. But stop like at the belly button. And I found out pretty quickly why there's a crotch zipper. Because you can't get the suit off to go to the bathroom.
Oh.
Like I have to get help to get the sleeves on in general. So getting it off is a similar process, and then putting it back on again.
Oh my gosh.
So a lot of my bodysuits have crotch zippers now, at least the ones that I've made.
Okay. All right. That is a good tip.
But outside of even not having a crotch zipper, like the crotch, being the seam where, the corner where all the seams come together, and having that line up just right, it's horrible, especially the leg hole, like getting the like hip thigh leg hole to come around and fit perfectly into that crotch is really difficult for me. And I also have found that around those areas have been the most likely to rip. Okay. Same with under the arm. Similar with that corner, and so I've developed methods around this, outside of like better patterning. And that's been to actually add little patches on both sides of the latex in that corner. So there's like extra reinforcement. Yeah.
Oh, that's super smart. Okay. Well, we've got to take a really quick break, but when we come back, I want to hear a lot more.
Hey everyone, we're Pros and Cons Cosplay. I'm Pro.
I'm Con.
And we're cosplayers from the Midwest who have been cosplaying for over 10 years now. And we also compete at the master level.
We wear a bunch of different hats too. We're judges, we're panelists, we're showrunners. A lot of the work that we do focuses on diversity, equity, and inclusion. We really want to make spaces for conventions and cosplay to feel as inclusive and be as inclusive as possible for our marginalized communities. So a lot of what we do is for policy, writing, and doing the panels on education.
Obviously, we really love cosplay, and I think my favorite cosplay so far has been my Sakizo Juliet piece. It's just giant skirts and ruffles and honeycomb smocking and corsets and resin casting, and it was just my favorite thing.
And usually I'm not a ruffles on ruffles gal, but my favorite was also my Sakizo Evil Queen, because I got to try out smocking for the first time and using some historical aesthetics, so that was pretty cool. But if I had to pick my all-time favorite costume to try, it would be to roll up to a con as dressed as a Gundam. I would love to just be the Wing Zero, the Death Psych, and just like be a giant, huge like mecha. It would be awesome.
I think for me it would be redoing my Frieza cosplay. That'd be my dream. I love Dragon Ball Z. I love all the giant muscles and the aliens, the superpowers. That's my jam. I think if I had to pick my own superpower though, I would pick adhesion hands, just to touch the thing and to adhere perfectly.
I would pick elemental powers, I think. That would be pretty cool for me. You can find us on all of our social medias. We're on Instagram at Pros and Cons Cosplay and Facebook at Pros and Cons Cosplay.
Awesome. Amazing. Okay. So that kind of leads me into another question that I wanted to ask you about the latex bodysuits in particular. Is putting them on, can we talk about that? Like how do you get a latex suit or bodysuit on? Because I've heard all sorts of different things, but I'm wondering if you can give us a little insight on
totally.
what that process is.
Yeah, for me, most suits that if it's sleeveless and it's legless, it's not going to be too difficult.
Okay.
Like you might want to lube yourself up a little bit, but for sleeves and legs, those are the most likely. Like they're going to be the tightest, smallest areas, and so so they can, as you're pulling these things on, it can rip.
Oh, okay.
Whether that's like a fingernail or a finger getting poked through, which has happened. Actually, that's pretty common as you're pulling legs on or as you're pulling sleeves on. That's whether you have fingernails or not. If it's, we're talking about 0.3 millimeter thick latex, primarily. Sometimes it can be 0.4 or 0.5. But the heavier the fabric, the more, the less it'll stretch. So you want 0.3, 0.4 is about the standard for at least women's clothing and bodysuits.
Okay.
But yeah, so silicone lubricant is usually recommended.
Okay.
Some people recommend either a talc or a baby powder, and my friend has always gone on and on like which one is bad. I think talc is, and baby powder is the good one. I don't know. There's one of this thing. Yeah, don't use cornstarch. I don't know. There's all this weird stuff.
See, I've heard so many different things. Okay, so silicone lubricant.
I tried.
Yeah. Oh, where'd you go?
Oh, so I've personally tried. So I've personally tried the like baby powder, and I do use that to store latex if I'm storing it for a long period of time.
Okay.
But putting a suit on, it just still didn't work as well for me as something as more slippery as silicone lubricant. Okay. And the other thing to think about is even with silicone lubricant, over time, over the day you're wearing it, if you're wearing it to a con all day long, it dries up after a while. Even silicone, a water-based lubricant's going to be good dry up faster. But as it dries up, that's when, it's not going to move on your body as well. That's when you could potentially rip. I think it was the end of Rose City last year or the year before, and I was in my new Psylocke suit, and it was near the end of the day, and I just like went like that, and I had this rip like down like elbow to back kind of area. No. I don't think I even fixed it. It was too big of a rip that I was like, I don't even think I want to fix it. But
God. Yeah. So when you do have like a tragedy like that, if it's a small little finger poke, or a little rip on a seam, I would imagine that you'd have to assess like, can I fix this, or am I just never going to wear this again? Or what is that grieving process like? I mean, how can you fix these rips and these damage?
I mean, you can patch things. When I patch, I tend to, if it's a hole, it's not too bad, but you do have to like try to stretch it tight to where it's like no hole. And so you're just trying to get it to the point where the pieces are touching, and then you put a patch on top. I tend to put a patch on top so underneath and on top, so that it's a double patch. Okay. But like a huge rip like that, and I've had that happen from the crotch, which is horrible. In fact, my original latex aerial was a pencil skirt, and I made the mistake of not putting reinforcement around the waist, and I went to like adjust it, and it ripped right down the middle.
No.
That was at a Comic-Con, and I
my
thankfully it was like
gosh.
I was prepared. I had an extra skirt with me, like not latex, but a green skirt to go with still. Um,
Oh gosh, that is what a what a nightmare. Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
yeah. In
Wow, wow,
general,
wow.
like even a costume, a latex outfit that you're confident in, it's still recommended really to have a backup
Yeah.
because you just never know what'll happen.
Yeah.
And if it rips, it like explodes off you in some way. It's so tight.
Is it like popping a balloon?
Kind of. And so it's like you just, yeah,
Oh my gosh.
it's a little unnerving, really.
Oh gosh. Oh gosh. That's like I think every cosplayer's nightmare is something falling off,
Yeah,
having that happen.
right.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Well, I'm really sorry to hear that about your Psylocke because that is just the such a beautiful. I love that costume so much. Just awesome. I love. It's been really fun watching the progression of your costumes and the complexity, and like the speed at which you are working. It's just amazing. It's really inspiring to see you with your new stuff. And I love your 7 of 9 that you had, and you had the little prosthetic on your eye. Did someone else make that for you, or was that something that you made as well?
Yeah, JJ actually made
Oh,
that for
I
me.
was gonna say, I think was that JJ's handiwork there.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, it's funny. Early on, like I was like, oh, I'm gonna make everything. I made the props for my Black Widow, and then as I've gotten, more of a veteran cosplayer, I felt like I don't have fun doing props. I don't have fun doing this other
yeah,
stuff. So I want to
yeah,
stick to the things I want to specialize in.
yeah,
And then if there are props or other things, I get to promote my friends that way,
yeah. That's perfect. That's awesome. Um, well, how many costumes have you made? How many latex costumes have you made? Do you know? Do you even have a count? I
think
got a little glimpse of your closet during that live feed. It's like, wow, that is impressive.
yeah. Latex costumes. I mean, costumes in general has got to be in the 30s, 40s, 50s. So latex probably 20s
Oh my
ish.
gosh.
So that's what
Wow.
I just thinking about it.
Yeah. Wow. And you have like a master bodysuit pattern that you have that is yeah, that you're constantly revamping and changing and
Yeah, I
as your
I
reference.
started out with what's funny is I started out with the Yaya Han bodysuit pattern
Okay.
originally,
Okay.
and did the Spandura, tried to make it work. That was my first Batgirl, my first latex catsuit, and after that actually lasted a year, but I think it just didn't fit right. It was loose enough. It
Okay.
wasn't gonna rip, but it also
Uh-huh.
didn't look as good. And so
You can't have both, right?
right, exactly. So actually it was I think I used that a couple times and then I was like I need to start over. And so I had my friend, my latex designer friend, actually sit down with me. We went through my measurements. We made this thing, all the pieces. I made a test pattern. Actually, I made so many test patterns. So that's the thing I do actually too, is if I'm testing a pattern in latex, I'll use, I have a lot of latex, so I'll have cheaper latex that I'll use for that I don't care about. And I have probably a couple like full bodysuits tests. I have a couple like just leg tests and
Okay. Yeah.
just sitting there. They're kind of useless. They look ugly. It was just for pattern testing.
Yeah, yeah, I've got various body parts in my shop too. Mine are mostly duct tape dummy parts, like a leg
Oh,
or foot or like a forearm. Yeah, a weird torso, which doesn't look as weird as like having a random arm hanging around.
right.
Oh, that's funny. So, so how do you store your latex costumes? Is there a good way to do it?
Yeah. There's a couple of ways, and this goes back to, my experience versus what a lot of people say. Um, but first off, for cleaning, like you can't throw these in the washer, right?
Right, right.
And so,
Please don't.
yeah, exactly. Um, so you actually, I take a shower with them, and so
Oh, okay.
I'll shower with it. use a very basic hand soap, like the least amount of ingredients as possible.
Okay.
You got to think of latex as an organic thing, and it can be stained by metal. It can be stained by all kinds of things. And so,
Okay.
I mean, it's certain metals, that's a whole nother thing, like people say versus what I've experienced. Like I use neodymium magnets in my latex for attachments and stuff.
Okay.
And I haven't seen any stains from that yet.
Okay.
But
Do you
then
glue
I've
them
seen,
in?
yes, like little pockets glued in.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, it's kind of weird though how different ingredients react with latex weird. So that's what's been recommended to me, is always like very basic hand soap, and hang dry. And then I've been told not to hang them on hangers for a long period of time.
Okay.
And the reason is the weight on the hanger will eventually wear through the shoulders of the bodysuit or whatever.
Oh, okay.
Latex also just wears over time.
Okay.
And my ex-husband actually experienced this firsthand, where he had a latex piece hanging up for several years in the closet, hadn't worn it.
Yeah.
And it did that. It wore through the shoulders completely.
Oh my gosh.
So
wow.
So I actually was hanging my latex before that happened.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I'm not doing that anymore.
Yeah. Wow.
Like that's over a long period of time. If you're just gonna, wear it in a week or, in a month even, it's probably fine.
Yeah.
If I'm gonna wear it pretty soon, I will just, once it's dry, I will just fold it up and put it in a Ziploc bag.
Okay.
If it's especially sticky, I might add some baby powder in there, here and there, to make sure it's not like sticking together too much. Yeah. If I don't think I'm going to wear it the next year or two, then I make sure it's heavily baby powdered.
Okay.
Just to make sure that it's not going to like stick to itself over time forever. Like, because at some point, someday you're going to try to unstick it and it might not,
come apart,
without ripping, it might not.
Yeah. Oh man, what a bummer. Oh my gosh. Well, that's really interesting because in thinking about other costumes, we spend so much time trying to make it so that it is something that will last for a really long time, like whether that's wrapping it in Warabla or, like paying attention to seams and doing extra things to seams and lining and all of that stuff. But sounds like there's not really an awful lot that you can do to make them last for a super long time because of the nature of the material.
Exactly.
Yeah. You are frozen a little bit. There you are.
Okay.
So how long, or is there one, so you were talking about different kinds of latex, different weights of latex. What is your go-to?
Usually I stick to the recommendation for a woman's bodysuit, and that's 0.3 millimeters.
Okay.
If some places maybe they'll have a certain color and a certain thickness, and so maybe you can't get 0.3. I wouldn't go down to 0.2 because I'd be afraid of ripping, but I'm okay with going up to 0.4. And if it's 0.5, I don't know if I've used 0.5 much, but yeah, that's probably the max I would use for most everything. I was 0.5.
Okay. And then can you paint latex? Is that something that you can, or is it pretty much just as it is?
You can technically put liquid latex on it.
Oh,
I'm not sure about other paints. This goes back to problems with interaction with other things.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
But you can do applique. I do a lot of applique with other latex sheeting. There's some tricks to that as well.
Okay.
Zippers are a pain in the butt because a fabric zipper does not stick to latex. It will over time, it will probably within the first wearing. I don't know. I've never dealt with it without actually working with it first.
Yeah.
What you have to do is either paint the zipper tape with liquid latex or rubber cement. And so doing several coats of rubber cement to get it to kind of think like, oh, this is latex I'm sticking to. So latex sticks to latex then.
Gotcha.
And it works. And then you reinforce the zipper on the other side with more latex as well. So.
Okay. so you don't have any crotch explosions.
Yeah. So I had that happen at Geek
Oh
Girl
man.
Con with Cami.
Oh
Um,
no.
right? I think
Oh.
it was Geek Girl Con. No, it was SacraCon because we were giving blood, and uh,
Oh no.
so I think Cami was great at Emerald City, and then at Geek Girl Con, it the crotch blew up right before I was going to give blood, and
Gosh.
I
Oh,
was
what a nightmare. Oh my
the
gosh.
stuff was in the car, and so I was like, I'm just going to sit here. If Abby, can you go get my stuff from the
Yeah.
car? And
Yeah.
I'll go. Um, so yeah, and what's fun? So Cami is an example of that's another one I couldn't fix, but I ended up cutting the legs off,
Mm-hmm.
and the suit itself is fine. So I'm just gonna revamp it with some regular tights.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh,
I was
okay.
using transparent latex with green applique camo on the legs to make it look like I had camo legs. Um, but yeah, so for future I'll just make camo tights instead and
Yeah.
still be able to reuse that suit at least. So.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Um, do you, of all the costumes that you have made in the past, is there one that that you love the most, or maybe that you have made a couple of times, or you would definitely make if you did have an issue with a malfunction?
It's hard to say. I mean, every costume I've made is an issue. It's like there's something wrong with it that I'm not happy with. Um, like I'd say my latest Supergirl, because it looks cool, but the overall fit was horrendous. The torso was so tight that it ends up being this huge thong, and it's very uncomfortable.
Oh,
You don't
those are two words that are terrible together.
you don't see this because it has a skirt covering that part of it, right?
Right, right.
But it's just
Oh
like
no.
so when I revamped, I did Dark Supergirl with the same pattern. I made sure that the torso was 2 inches longer, and then in the process, I made a new Batgirl with that same one, and then found out that the 2 inch long torso with latex legs actually pulls the crotch down, and so you have this
Oh.
sinking crotch.
Oh
And so
God.
I had to actually generalize or specialize both my patterns to be like, this one's for leotards with no
Yeah.
legs, and this one
Yeah.
is for legs
Oh, that's interesting.
around
Oh
that.
wow. Oh my gosh. The things that you have learned. This is why I think you're my expert, because this is just such a different frame of mind of making and creating. Putting a material on your body that is completely skin tight, but not being able to sew it and having to deal with all sorts of different kinds of issues that, wow, this is amazing.
Yeah, and it
Um,
doesn't breathe either, so you're going to be sweating in there all
Yeah.
day long.
Yeah. What's the longest you've been able to, like, what is the general amount of time that you can wear a bodysuit? Let's start with that.
So I've worn them for, all day long at cons. So let's say 8 hours, 10
Okay.
hours, but
Okay.
that's when it's more likely to rip. And so what I've been doing lately is people laugh at me because it's like, you're wearing how many costumes to a con? It's like, no, half day latex, full bodysuit latex tend to be better costumes for a half day.
Oh,
And
okay.
so
That makes sense now. Because I've always been like, wasn't she just wearing something else just like an hour ago? Or you would say like, yeah, this is my costume lineup. So that makes total sense. Oh my gosh. I'm learning so much from you. This is amazing. Um, all right. Let's see. I'm trying to think what my favorite one of yours is. I love your Tinkerbell so much.
oh yeah, okay, I could
I
say
just love those photos that you have gotten from them. They're just beautiful.
I mean, that was my first ballet costume with point shoes, and so
Yeah.
it's kind of showing off my ballet class skills in the
Yeah.
process.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'd say there's probably not as many issues with that costume, so that could be a favorite of mine too.
Wonderful. Well, let's see. What other question did I have? What do you, so you have like an idea for sometime in the future with maybe Black Swan, but do you have anything else that you are, have in the wings or that you are thinking about working on? I know you just made the tutu. What's next? What's next for you?
Yeah. So on the latex side of things, I I recently made a Batkini, and so it's really just a Batgirl crop top with panties, and that was in latex, and that was for my Cupid's Undie run, which was raising funds for neurofibromatosis.
Awesome.
But because I made that crop top, that was a new pattern based on either the Tinkerbell dress or my bodysuit. So something there, and I'm like, hey, that crop top actually works pretty well for the cartoon Supergirl, where she has a white top and a blue skirt.
Oh, perfect.
And so I was like, I haven't done that version yet. And so I already made the blue pencil skirt. And so I just got to buck up and make the white. It's basically, what's funny is it took me longer to make that Batkini. It took me like all weekend to make that because all the reinforcement, your reinforcing this, you're reinforcing the sleeves, you're reinforcing the neck.
Yeah.
Versus a cat suit, it's just like, legs, sleeves, neck, and that's it.
Wow.
So, but yeah, and then I don't know if you've seen Cheer on Netflix.
I haven't.
Okay, well, there's the Navarro cheerleaders on there. They have some really glittery uniforms, and at some point I was like, I've worked a lot with glitter latex.
Yeah.
And DragonCon, originally I was thinking DragonCon this year, which I doubt it's going to happen. But I want to make a Navarro. I know. I want to make a Navarro cheerleader.
Oh, perfect.
Outfit. So that's kind of random, but similar thing with like a crop top and a skirt.
Yeah.
And then of course non-latex. I have some fabric ordered for new tutus. I'm going to make a Supergirl tutu.
Oh,
and
awesome.
Also a lift tutu. I work for Lyft, and so I tend to. Last year I made a super Lyft girl costume in spandex.
That's great.
So I was like, oh, it'd be cool to make like a pink tutu with like the Lyft symbol on it. So yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. I love it. That is so awesome. That is so great. Wow, I have learned so much. My mind is like, wow, I kind of want to at least maybe try like a latex skirt or something.
Yeah.
I have a whole new appreciation for latex anything now after talking to you about all of this, because your work is you always look so flawless. You do. Every time
Thanks.
I've seen you, your costumes have been amazing, and I guess because it's not something that I've ever made myself, I've never been able to appreciate how much care and how much work it takes to put those together. Certainly how hard it is to consider this construction and the reinforcements and all of that, so that you can deal with the pending doom of like rips and all that stuff that just seems like that's just part of the whole process. Like, what would you say to somebody who is thinking about getting into making latex or making a suit out of latex or anything out of latex? Some tips or encouragement or words of wisdom, what would you share with them?
Sure. First, I'd say have patience.
Yeah.
It takes, one of the reasons it takes so long is because you're waiting for the glue to dry, and it's just like, it's nice to just have something else to do or something. Sometimes I'll work on a spandex project in the living room and then be working on latex in the bedroom, go back and forth. So yeah, have patience. Don't rush it, especially for the glue time. You don't want to glue too soon, or it's not going to seal right. And plus, it's going to be all curly, and that's going to cause problems. Don't be afraid to remake a costume. Like that's, you might not be able to modify it, but, and if something doesn't look great the first time, take it from me. Like you said, it looks great from afar. It looks great in photos. It looks great to a lot of people, even if it doesn't look great to you.
Sure.
So don't be afraid to remake it and build on your skills as you go as well. And then, always keep improving on your pattern, I guess, is as you go.
Yeah, keep your pattern. That's Don't throw that stuff out. Sounds like you'd probably want to save scraps if you can to like test on or to use as patching.
Yes. Yeah, I save.
Hoard it all.
I save a bunch of scraps. I've gotten to the point where I have so many that I, if they're like really small or I don't think they're usable, I'll get rid of them. But for the most part, I have separate Ziplocs of scraps of every color that I've made.
Yeah, that's smart. Oh my gosh. Wow, I have learned so much. And I have to thank you for spending the time to really walk me through this like a beginner kindergartner, because that's how I feel with latex. But now I feel a little bit more armed, like if I wanted to try it out.
Good.
Yeah, this has been awesome. Thank you so much. Is there, trying to think of any other questions that I might have for you. Of course, if I think of something, I'll probably have to like message you and be like, hey, what about this and that? Is there anything else that you can impart, any words of wisdom or any other notes that you can share or would like to share or wanted to share with our listeners and people that are watching right now?
Well, one is feel free to reach out to me. I love answering questions about this kinds of stuff.
Awesome.
That's part of the reason I put my stuff out there.
Yeah.
I've helped put on panels. I want to put on a full workshop. Take someone through the process of making a skirt or something like that. And for a Comic-Con to do that, it's one, you can't have too large of a group.
Right.
And two, there's a lot of cost for supplies.
Sure.
And there's just a lot to it. Last year at RenCon, we were going to do that, but we didn't get the word out soon enough. And so we just didn't get enough signups in time to order all supplies and then get it done.
Yeah.
But I'd still love to do that at some point, just to have like a workshop, because it's much more interesting to actually, hands-on make something than to just have someone drone over on a panel and show slides. That's
right. I totally agree. And I'm like a hands-on kind of a person.
Me too.
Visualizing this whole time we've been talking about like how to do all the things, and it was helpful to watch that video the live stream. But I totally understand. If you do another workshop, please let me know, because I definitely want to check that out and get some hands-on experience with this. And I just want to tinker around with the fabric and kind of experience that process, because that's totally new. It's very interesting. Yeah, totally. That'd be super fun. Well, where can we find you online to go look at your work and see what you're up to and follow your costumes and your processes and all that?
Yeah, primarily I work off of Facebook. Jerikandra Cosplay. It's with a K, even though you spell my name with a C. And then Jerikandra on Instagram as well. Jerikandra Lurve, Lurve on Twitter. Whoever owns Jerikandra got banned, and now I can't even get that name on Twitter.
No. Bummer.
But yeah, so those are the primary places. Oh, I have a YouTube channel. I like to make videos, not just about cosplay, but just about sometimes video logging. People really love my morning updates where I talk about like how my progress is going on certain costumes or things in my life.
No, I love that too. Those are fun. Yeah. Little.
And then also recently I've been making more videos. I'm a volunteer with Cheer Seattle, and we've been raising funds for Gen Pride, which is an organization for LGBT seniors. If you want to check that out, there's a lot of fun videos that where I as the cheerleader talk to myself as a costume character and
perfect.
Introduce them to like what Gen Pride is, what Cheer Seattle is. I even recently did one about Black Lives Matter as well. Just kind of some fun talking about some real issues on YouTube.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I'm going to go check those things out. Yeah, for sure. And listeners, watchers, please go check out Jerikandra Cosplay everywhere on the socials and support her work. And go get some latex. Try this stuff out. Yeah, it sounds like really, really fun. Like adding a whole new thing to, if you do foam all the time, try latex out. I know I really want to now. Yeah.
Yeah, you should.
Good to talk to you too. This has been really, really fun. Well, thank you again, everyone who's listening and everyone who's watching. Thanks for tuning in. I think that's all the time we have for today. Thank you again to Jerika for spending the time with me and teaching me all the things about latex.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. All right, that's all we have time for today. Thanks for listening and watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.